I'm Shankara, and this is a Run and Become interview, where we get to meet with inspiring members of the running community, listen to what challenges them and what excites them. We get to find out what makes someone step out of the ordinary life patterns and do something extraordinary. Today, I'm talking with Petra. Petra has gone from a beginner runner 10 years ago to an avid and talented ultra-distance runner. She recently returned from New York, where she competed in the Superhuman 10-day race. We'll hear more about that soon. Petra is a great example of how dedication and willpower can overcome obstacles and take you to your goal. Petra, I've watched your progression as a runner for many years because I'm fortunate enough to work with you here at Run and Become. And you've always impressed me with your inspiration and dedication to getting the best out of yourself as a runner. Your exploits in the Sri Chinmoy 6-day race last year led to Rowan Hooper dedicating a chapter of his Superhumans book to your achievements in that race and your journey in that race. But I want to start with the Sri Chinmoy 10-day race just this last April. And I want to ask you, what was the most meaningful experience that you had during the race?
It's not just one most meaningful experience. I guess it's what it also the race actually means to me. Because I guess it's my dream. So being there, seeing the sign 10-day race, it gives me tremendous joy because I know how hard I work for it. So that gives me a lot of joy. And then it's, I guess, the spiritual part of it, where I believe we are all truly unlimited. And then seeing it manifested, not just in myself, but in all the other people who have different bodies and sizes, but it doesn't matter. The fact that we can all do our best and go beyond what we think is possible. That's a very meaningful experience to me, experiencing the unlimitedness of humankind, of our souls. What I really love is the oneness of the race, the fact that people share their hearts, their time, their goodwill, all good that they have inside of them. You share your pain, you share your laughter, you share your joys, sorrows, everything. You encourage each other. That's very, very meaningful because I think that's what life should be about, that we share all we have, share our hearts, our love. And so to me, the race represents a perfect world where people, are together, share everything and are in perfect harmony, which is a very meaningful experience to me.
That's such a wonderful perspective. And I'm sure quite different from what somebody maybe thinks of in racing when it's a much shorter race. If you're racing a 5K where it's all about competition. I love the fact that when it's an ultra, like the further the distance, the greater the challenge, the more you're relying on your fellow competitors for their love and for their oneness over, I'm going to beat the hell out of you today. That's really fantastic to hear. But for a moment, let's go back to the beginning. When did you start to run and why?
I started running when I was 19 because I felt I was missing something in my life. As a teenager, running or sports, it's not the coolest thing to do. And as such, I was used to be very active. So I felt I wanted to regain my old self. So I started running just by myself. There was a river near where I lived in Prague. And my normal run back then was an hour long. But I wouldn't run the whole hour, but I just ran and I walked a bit and I stretched and I ran again. And I really enjoyed it, being in nature. And so that's how it started. And then I sort of felt like I needed something more. So I got into meditation and I sort of got to know more about Sri Chinmoy's philosophy. And he was into running, and he believed that running can really help us in our inner life and in our outer life. And he believed that 2 miles a day was a good way to keep the body and the mind and the soul and everything fit and happy. So I started doing it, running 2 miles every day. and that made me really happy. And so yeah, that's how it all started.
Well, next I wanted to ask you how you got the distance or the, ultra running bug. But then when I hear that you started your running life doing an hour, okay, even if you were running and walking, I shouldn't be surprised that distance ended up being your thing.
I guess I was quite happy doing my 2 miles and my hour rounds. But then as I was attending the meditation classes in Prague, the people there, they were organizing also races, 5 and K races, but actually they also mentioned the 6 and 10 day race and the 3,100 mile race. So hearing about that and like just the fact that some people are able to do that, how unlimited we are. I guess that sort of there was something in me that went like, maybe it's possible. Maybe I could do it one day. And then I started working on Run and Become, and that obviously was a great inspiration, for my running. And I actually 1 year I went to help at the 3,100 mile race, and it was a great experience because I just suddenly you feel the energy and you feel like everything is possible, and suddenly it felt like that was the reality, that we are human beings, and we think we are limited, but actually we can do so much more than we can ever imagine. So I felt like I wanted to know more about how unlimited I could be myself, and it didn't have to be a 3,100 mile race, but I did a half marathon and that felt quite easy. And then I did a marathon, and obviously I did struggle, but it always felt so satisfying afterwards. And I guess I wanted to know what else I could do.
That's so interesting to me that you start running, then you start going to meditation classes, and then you find that this new way of life that you have, that you decide to do more of the meditation, join the Sri Chinmoy Meditation Center, and you find actually that's where you're encouraged very strongly to run. Like the two things came together as sort of like special time, special moment sort of for you. That's really interesting. So what was your first ultra race?
My first ultra race actually wasn't a race, it was a 50-mile run that we decided to do with my friends, colleagues from Run and Become and other also friends. But it wasn't a proper race because we ran and walked, and we had a vehicle with us with food. But there was definitely the furthest I've ever gone.
That was when we did the London to Brighton run, right? And I think I was with you, but I must specify I did not run the whole way. I went in the van. I was part driver, part runner. But you did the whole thing.
Yes, it was actually very special. I didn't know what would happen, and I went through some very downtime, like when I was just like because some during these ultra races, that's what happens. Like some stuff inside that you've been hiding for years suddenly like comes to the fore, and you have to deal with it. So some stuff like from like some family things just came to the fore, and so I had to let it go. I had to cry a bit, and then it's sort of like then it went, and it so showed me also the power of running, what it can do to us. Like it can help us, maybe forgive others, and then move on. And then, afterwards I could, deal with what happened in the past much better.
And then your first actual ultra race was?
There was a 12-hour enduro race where it started at 7 p.m. and finished at 7 a.m. And I remember I worked the whole Saturday, and then I went down, and then I did the race, and I finished third lady with 60 miles. So that was my first proper ultra.
Yeah, I remember you going off to that 12-hour and us all hoping and praying it was going to go well, and it did. And then after that, 4 years ago, you did our 24-hour race here in London, at Tooting Vet, the Sri Chinmoy self-transcendence 24-hour. Blew us away with doing, 108 miles? So then after that, you did this leap to the 6th day. Was that always a natural progression for you to just keep it upping the duration and the experience?
I guess I did the 24-hour race actually because of the 6 and 10 day race. Because I knew I had to qualify to be able to run the race, because one cannot just do a 6-day race without having a history of running events. So yeah, and I had at the 24-hour race for 3 years, and really inspired me to see what people were going through. So I really wanted to do it, and it was an amazing experience. And yeah, so I guess then I could qualify to actually do the 6-day race, and then they accepted me. And even though actually the first 6-day race, I didn't do. I had to pull out because I had a knee problem. So I actually didn't do the first 6-day race. And instead I went to New York to help L3100, but I was helping a runner. I was a handler to a lady for nearly 3 weeks. So that gave me a really good idea of how it is to run like 18 hours a day, when to take breaks, how to eat. I was massaging her feet, her legs, so that I learned a lot from the experience, just to know how to deal with pains, emotions, and yeah. So the first year actually I didn't run, I had to pull out.
So she was kind of like your teacher in a way.
She was, yeah. She really was. And I still, until today, I always think back to that year because I learned just so much.
I think that's such an important sort of lesson you're sharing with us then, because to fail, you'd driven yourself towards a 6-day race and then you couldn't do it. But through our failures or our, those experiences can be just as vital to our long-term success, right? Because you got a different experience that year that's actually put you in a stronger position when you did get to do the 6-day. So then you did the 6-day and you did well, and then you came back the second year and did it again. Now this I wanted to ask you about, because I remember we were looking at the results, and on day 5 of the 6-day, you were in a strong 2nd place. And then we wake up the next morning and you've won the race. What did you pull out of yourself? I know you're competitive, but you're not a competitive against the next person. So what did you pull out of yourself to win that race?
I just felt I could do it. It just all sort of came together suddenly. A friend of mine came, and I didn't have a helper that year. But she came and she started helping me throughout the night, and she said, she was more experienced than me, so she said, no, you should take a break. So you should sleep at least an hour. So go to bed at 1 o'clock, and then take a shower, rest for an hour, and then come back. So that's what I did. So basically I went, I took a shower, and then I slept for an hour, and then I went back on the course, and it was just very peaceful during the night, and I felt that peace was giving me a lot of energy as well. Running at night it's quite magic. You just feel the power of silence, and I guess, yeah, and I was inspired, and I just gave my all, and in the end I found myself being first.
So in that 6-day race, you did 370 miles. And I remember as soon as you came back from that, it was like your head was immediately on 10-day. I'm going to do the 10-day race. And you did do that for the first time this year. You had a helper for the first time, which was going to make a difference. And I think we're seeing through this interview that running for you is really about everything almost, other than the fact that you're physically fit and have got strong legs and strong lungs, because it's really about the experience you share with others, but also your way of going on that journey inside yourself. And I was so amazed to hear about it's your way of finding forgiveness for events in your past. That's something that people wouldn't necessarily look to running to sort of sort out. It's really interesting and really inspiring to me. So when it came to the 10-day, obviously that's a very recent experience. I want to ask you how the whole experience goes. But before that, I want to share with people the run up to that, because you started training, it was all going really, really well. And then you got sick. What was it, 6 weeks beforehand? And you remained sick. And your training kind of went, not completely out of the window, but it was barely there. And I remember, personally, I was, as your friend, I was worried. I was like, oh my God, how is she going to pull this off? And yet you managed to get yourself healthy just in time and get yourself on that start line. And the organizer was like, yeah, she's fit and strong enough, to do this. And my God, you were, even with the far from ideal build-up. So how did it go? Before you answer, I think you should take a hold of your trophy and hold your trophy as you answer the question.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, you are right. It wasn't a perfect sort of build up to a race. And I actually, yeah, and also doubts were torturing my mind. But in the end, I felt it was the right thing to do. And then the organizers were just so supportive. And they said, no, you did the training, mentally prepared, physically prepared. The last 1-2 months, doesn't really matter. And it just felt really right. And then, as you said, I had a helper for the first time, and just made a whole lot of difference. That, I mean, not just the fact that she saved me a lot of time, but also because I wasn't 100% well. She really, she had all the vitamins and all the sort of medical stuff for me ready, and it was really windy. So by the time I got to her, I was completely hoarse. I couldn't speak. She always had that tea with honey ready for me, which, if I was to do it by myself, it would take me so long. And I really knew that I had to take the race easy. So I wasn't pushing it hard. I was trying to make sure that I do between 50 and 60 miles. So I guess I know I can do more, but the aim for this race was like just to give my all, do my best, but
be sensible, and I had Penny to keep an eye, my helper to keep an eye on me. And yeah, and so I was just trying to be steady, just do the miles, do the breaks, eat well, make sure that I don't lose too much weight. And after 3 days the mind gets sort of more tranquil, and the first 2 days you're like panicking a bit because the mind is not used to just going in circles because it's a 0.8 mile loop. But after 3 days the mind gets like quite happy about it. You just run, you don't have to listen to the music. It's like, yeah, this is what I'm doing. It's quite happy. And then after I think 6 days, 7 days, there was a change in my body. Like the body suddenly, I changed my break, my sort of resting system from 6 hours to 3 hours. So I was getting like more breaks but shorter, which actually made it easier for me to come out of the tent, which I found also mentally easier. Having a helper really helped. And then after 6 days the body so get used to it, and I felt like
there was an energy that was pulling me to the end. So I felt like the soul took over the body, and then I felt like there was really a high energy that was taking me to the goal, and it felt more effortless, which was amazing to feel.
In the end of your 10 days, you'd recorded 577 miles and you'd placed second, narrowly missing first, right? Such an amazing achievement. We were watching your daily results with such excitement here, and our pre-race worry turned into medium to end race pride and joy. And here you are with your trophy from that race, and we've got your third place from the 6th day and your first place from the second 6th day. So 2 6-day races, 1 10-day race. What's next? Is it still too early to say because it's relatively recent, or do you already know this is what I got my eye on?
You learn a lot during the race. You learn about yourself, and then it's like, okay, why do I actually do these races? It's not about winning. It's not about actually clocking all the miles, but it's about learning who I really am and who I want to be. And so I guess I want to, whatever I've experienced there, take some time for me to digest it and to really reflect on that, what it actually meant to me, and then bring it into my daily life. Because we all are truly unlimited, but the thing is, in our day-to-day life, we tend to forget that quite easily. You get tired, and you don't, during the race you sleep 4 or 5 hours, 4 hours a day, and it's like normal, but then during your normal life you wouldn't just sleep 4 hours and say, oh, it's fine. So I guess I would like to just bring the message of the self-transcendence and the sharing and love into my daily life, and live it. I think that's the main thing why I do races, and why I want to do more of them.
Thank you, Petra, for sharing your inspiration and your journey with us. I think for me, it's been really interesting to see what truly motivates you as a runner. And it's not necessarily what you think it would be. And I'm really touched by how you want to bring if you express the best of yourself in these races, you want that all to come into your daily working life as well, because I think it can be quite difficult sometimes for runners, especially the longer the run is, if it's going multi-days, to then get back into the normal go to work, struggle on the tube or whatever. So the fact that you're trying to mold the two, to me, is like, it's a different way of thinking about it. I really like that, and that this is your personal journey. So thank you for sharing that with us, and I look forward to seeing what you'll be doing in the 10-day race, probably again next year, and all the running races and experiences you have to come. So thank you.
And thank you to you for interviewing me, and also, running has been a big part of my running journey, because when I look at all the other runners, I have the best skin. I need to sort of make justice, and and all your encouragement throughout the years, it's running has really fueled my running, and so I thank you for that too.
Thank you.